As you can see, my shed is in complete darkness. I have no power to any of my fish tanks, and that's because the power company has decided to upgrade their lines today. And this is something which can happen to anybody, not just upgrading of lines, but the power just generally going out for whatever reason. And if you have a fish tank or fish tanks, this can be a major problem. All of your fish's life support systems have now just been turned off, and it's down to you to try and sort out the problem. If the power outage is really short, and I mean like half an hour to an hour, there isn't really much you need to do. The fish will be fine. Most of your equipment and filtration will be fine. They can cope with this. However, like me, if you have a longer outage, so this one is lasting from 9 in the morning till 5 in the evening, then there are some issues you're going to encounter, and there are some things that we need to do to try and help our fish get through it. So luckily for me, I was informed a week before about this power outage. I knew it was coming, so I had time to get things ready. However, a lot of the times this can be a sudden surprise. A line goes down or something like that, and you're going to be off the grid for quite a while. So we need to have in our mind things that we can do and to combat the issues that can arise. A lot of it is just actually looking at how we'd normally have an aquarium, what things our fish actually normally require, and trying to provide those in a manual way. So the first thing, I'd say the most critical initially, is going to be oxygen. If you have a lot of fish in your fish tank, they're going to be using oxygen up quite quickly, and especially when it's a hot day. So today in my shed we're at 26 degrees, and in warmer water we have less oxygen dissolved. So that means the fish can go downhill quite quickly and run out of oxygen. Now, if you have no power, how are you going to actually put oxygen through your aquarium? Because normally it's the filtration system that does that. Well, there are ways to do it, and one of the easiest way of doing it is to actually get something like this. So this is a battery powered air pump. This one's by Night Crew. I have done a review on this on my channel. So this one is rechargeable by USB, and I basically just have it in my cupboard. I keep it charged so that when something like this happens, I can whip it out and just put it straight onto my aquarium. So you can see the battery there on the left, fully charged. And what I've done is I've split it between the two tanks that have the most fish. So this tank here has got quite a few fish in it. Obviously this side as well, mollies. And then this 5 foot here, we have got lots of saltwater fish. So quite expensive, and I don't want to lose any of these because they're hard to replace, and obviously they're treasured animals. So what I've done is I've split it into two, and when you do this normally, what will happen is it will just go down one side, the least resistance path. So what I've done here is I've just tied a little knot, and you can just adjust the flow so that it goes down either side. So really, in terms of oxygen, it's always good to have one of these battery powered air pumps, because you can buy it for about £20 and you might not use it for a couple of years, but then you have a power outage and bang, you have the equipment ready. Your fish are going to be fine. The other thing you can do is also you can get oxygen tablets. They're a little bit sort of old school now, but they dissolve in the water and they'll just keep oxygenating your aquarium. If you have a smallish aquarium, then you could manually oxygenate it with your hand. You could create turbulence in the water, splash around, but obviously that's time consuming and you have to do it manually. So it's best just to get one of these rechargeable battery powered air pump. So moving on from oxygen, we'll go straight into filtration and flow, because the filtration and the flow is normally where the oxygen comes from, but we're now at a standstill. But we've sorted the oxygen out. What do we do about our filtration? Well, there's a few things to take account for. The first thing is the fact that most of the fish will be fine without any flow. Fish are quite capable of just going in a tank with no flow as long as the oxygen is there. So in terms of flow for corals, normally they're pretty good. They're pretty tough when it comes to going without flow for a bit. However, if it's going to be a long-term power outage, it will be worth investing in a battery-powered power head. They do exist. They're big blocks, big power blocks. Sometimes they can be powered by USB power bricks, and they'll just work in the same way as that battery-operated air pump. however they'll just be blasting flow around. So it will help with the corals, and it will also help with oxygenation, with that water movement. Now back to the filtration. In your filter there is a lot of bacteria, and a lot of these bacteria require oxygen the same way that the fish do. After a while, what happens is the oxygen isn't getting to the bacteria, and the bacteria start to die. If your filtration is off for a long time, you can get a lot of dead bacteria, and then as soon as you turn that filter back on, when the power comes back on, it will blast a load of ammonia into your aquarium, and you'll have an ammonia spike, which can then cause problems in a similar way to as if a fish died or a coral died and you didn't know. Your fish will have ammonia poisoning. So what I recommend you do after a long power outage, you can use some of this, which is Prime, or anything like this, which is a very strong ammonia, nitrite and nitrate remover. This one lasts for about 24 hours. There are stronger ones, or you can just redose after 24 hours. Also dose a bacterial supplement just to boost the bacteria in the filter, because you'll lose a lot of it. Some of it will die, and a bacterial supplement will just help to boost that level back up. You can even do a water change and maybe clean your filter out as well, just to get rid of any dead and decaying bacteria that's in there. Just treat it like a normal water change, but obviously use that bacterial supplement and also use that ammonia remover. So the next really quite critical thing is temperature, and that is the water. Now if you've got a cold water aquarium, it doesn't matter, they'll be fine at room temperature because they are at the moment. But if you have a tropical fish tank, so marine, or you've got a tropical freshwater tank, then you're going to need to do something about temperature. So it's very dependent on the season. So at the moment in the UK we're having a bit of a heat wave. It's summer. You can see my shed is 26.5 degrees. So temperature being too cool, in fact, is probably not an issue here. These tanks will sit here at room temperature all day and they'll be quite happy. In fact, what I don't want them to do is get too warm, because then the oxygen levels will go down. So in a hot day, open a window, open the doors, get a fan blowing, keep your tanks cool, take lids off and things like that. But normally the issue is tanks getting too cold. And this is where the problem lies. If you have a big tank, then you're going to be alright for a few hours. They don't lose heat that quickly. Use a thermometer, check the temperature of your tanks. As long as they stay within a couple of degrees of, the right temperature, even down to 20 degrees, most tropical fish are fine. Once they start to dip, then you're going to have issues. So what we want to do is reduce the speed at which these tanks can lose heat. So we can wrap them in blankets, we can wrap them in towels, and that sort of thing, to really insulate the tank and then stop that heat from escaping. As far as I know, there aren't any battery powered heaters, but what you can do, you could boil some water on the hob. If you have a gas hob which doesn't require electricity, then you can boil some water, put it into a plastic bottle, and then put that into your tank, and that would act like a hot water bottle for your aquarium, keeping the temperatures up. But yes, it's very much about reducing the amount of lost heat from your aquariums. And as I said, it's okay in a big tank, they don't lose heat that quickly, but in a small tank, something like 120 litres below, they'll lose heat reasonably rapidly, and it's something you need to try and mitigate. So finally, we're talking about lighting. Now that is a key aspect of your aquarium, especially if you have plants or corals or macroalgae in my case. However, most plants and things like that will be fine for about 24 hours, if not a little bit longer, without lighting. So it's not really a key aspect of an emergency situation. If your power's off for a couple of days or a week, then yes, lighting is an issue, because your plants and corals will start to suffer. They're not going to be getting any energy to photosynthesize and grow and all of the stuff they like lighting for. However, if it's just a small, less than a day power outage, I wouldn't worry about lighting at all. There isn't really much point in giving them lights, because they'll just go to sleep. Most of the corals will just go inwards, think it's a night time. In the wild, corals will be subject to big storms where the sun gets blocked out. You get silt in the ocean, which will block the light out for a bit. So they're evolved to deal with that kind of situation for a couple of days, and the same with plants and stuff like that. So don't worry too much about lighting. Alternate power sources are also a thing, so you can get big battery packs which could power your fish tank. They tend to be like big external batteries with extension sockets on them, so you can plug your equipment straight into them, and you can have an alternate power source for however long you wanted. It's a bit like the air pump, but just on a bigger scale. And also there are things called generators. So I have a generator which I'll probably be hooking up a bit later, and that's great because I can just run this on petrol and I can keep the shed going for however long I like. But of course generators are noisy and they're big and they create fumes, so I'm pretty sure not a lot of people are going to be able to use generators, especially if you live in quite an urban environment. These are all things that you should think about before you have a power outage. Assume you're going to have a power outage and put some of these things in place. Definitely get one of these air pumps. These are a godsend. You never know when you need them. And think about things that you can get in place before you have a power outage to mean you don't have any stress when there is one. So once again, thanks for watching. If you've liked the video, please leave a like below and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching and happy fish keeping.